Well, welcome back to Mr. Obsolete's Vintage Homesteading. We did a recent video talking about when the power's out, when it's dark out, what do you need? Well, light is number one, and we talked about kerosene lanterns, so I'm just going to do a little brief on them, and then this one is actually going to be about heat. So anyway, kerosene lanterns, these are some bigger ones here, mid-size here, but you can use these inside of an enclosed area as long as you have ventilation, and don't use kerosene because it puts out some bad stuff, which I talked about in the last video. But just briefly, this is how at times we find them totally unrestored and needs a real go through. This is just a pretty decent original. It says Elgin on it, so this was manufactured for Sears, and it's a Montgomery brand lantern, but they would make special runs for the big retailers. This one's a Gamble's, which is Western Auto. This is a pretty rare lantern here. And this one started out looking like this, and it looked really okay, but had pinholes in the tank and stuff, so I had to do a complete restoration on it. So I stripped it with Evaporust and put new wick in it and fixed the burner, sealed the gas tank or the fuel tank there, and put a red lens in it. But you look right here, it says MW. It's from Montgomery Ward's. And over here it says Ward's Better Lantern. So this is a premium lantern. It was a Montgomery also. Okay, well, this video is going to be about heating small areas, like a tent or like our little shed here. This is 10 by 20. And you can heat with a little stove like this, but it is limited to what you can do with it. And also, if it was sitting there with an open flame, you got kids or somebody or pets around that can come over by it and might get their tail singed or something like that. So we'll show you. We get this lit here, so rotate our generator there and put it to the out point. It's got pressure and fuel, so we'll light it up here. There it goes. So this metal piece all around here will get hot, and this puts out a lot of heat, but like I say, it's not the safest way to heat. And it's warmed up now already, so it's got a nice blue flame. And people say, well, gee, it probably puts out carbon monoxide and this and that and the other. It's unsafe. Well, that's not accurate. The amount that these put out is virtually none. The thing they do is use up the oxygen in a real small area, and they do put out a little bit of carbon dioxide. So anytime you use a gas-powered appliance like these that we're going to be talking about, it's best to have a little bit of ventilation. So anyway, like I say, that's not the best setup, but here's a solution. Coleman, original Coleman heat drum. This is new old stock in the box. And what this does, it fits on top of here, so you don't have a direct flame open around anything. And that's what they look like. Now the nice thing about this, it directs the heat out here, and it has radiant heat here on the top. And so if you want to warm up your soup, or want to have some instant coffee or some beans or something like that, you have heat and you can cook on it too. So anyway, if you don't want to use this for heat any longer, just shut it off and let it cool off. Grab these two things and get your stove again. Okay, just one little thing I wanted to talk about this thing again. This was sold by Payless. It has the original sticker on here. It retailed for $2.25. It's on sale for $1.79. Remember when money was actually worth something? Okay, well, if you wanted to heat a bigger area, the solution is use a bigger stove. And so what we have here is another heat drum. This one is not made by Coleman. It says campsite, and it says 50/50 drum heater. Campsite Products Company. Same thing, it has a slot here to fit over here, like that, and then you have a ear here to pull it out. It just drops on there like that. So anyway, this would be for a medium-sized tent, or actually I probably would heat this 10 by 20 if I let it run long enough. So anyway, we're going to move on to a different type of heater. Now all the heaters we're going to be talking about today run on white gas or Coleman fuel, because if you used gasoline in any of these with all the bad additives and stuff in it, it would be really toxic. The fumes would be. But the Coleman fuel or white gas is so pure and it burns so clean that it has virtually no bad byproducts. So it's not going to be dying from any of the bad fumes on them. Okay, well, the next type of heater we're talking about is a catalytic heater. And these are the cleanest and most efficient and put out the most heat. So these, this what puts out the flame in here. It's not truly a flame, it's the fuel comes into this wick and goes out through this gauze here, and then burns the fuel through a capillary action, so it has virtually no emissions. And this is a Coleman one here, and here's an original owner's manual for it. So how these work, you put fuel in it, which we've done, and then you turn it upside down like this, and then you watch on the top of it, and then the fuel will come down the wick and you get a wet spot on the top of it, and then you light it. So we'll be back. Okay, well, there's a wet spot right here on the top, so it's ready to light. But we do not want to light this in an enclosed area because it will have a flame. As it starts to burn the fuel here, more will come up the wick, and it'll wick its way out through this and eventually go clear down the sides, and this whole thing will be a heater. So we'll go out and light it up. Flame burnt down, and it's putting out really nice heat. It slowly goes over the gauze and goes all the way down here. It takes a while. It takes about 45 minutes or so, but it'll heat this 10 by 20 very nicely. So we're going to leave it here heating for a while. We'll talk about another wonderful treasure here. Be right back. Well, the Boy Scouts motto is be prepared. So that means to me, don't have just one catalytic heater, have 2 or 3 or 4. So here we have Montgomery Ward's Riverside, and that was used that for on their camping gear and all kinds of different things named. It's another catalytic heater. This one happens to be new old stock in the box. And you can see it's got the vents all around here. Okay, well, here's the heat diffuser. So the heat comes out of these slots here. This is a snuffer that you put it out with. after it's burning, you want to put that on there. It starts with oxygen and it goes out. Your fuel cap here. There again, you just put fuel in it, turned upside down till you get a wet spot. It has a wick in here. Light it and it'll have a flame for about 10 to 15 minutes. Then the fuel will just slowly work its way out here, and this thing will turn a red over time and put out a nice heat. So anyway, this thing, like I say, is Newell stock. So here's the original instruction manual. It tells you all the do's and don'ts. And warning: for best use, Coleman type lantern and stove fuel only. Any other type of fuel is toxic. So, you know, people talk about these things being, oh, somebody said it was toxic and stuff. Well, it's not true. But anyway, here's the original sales receipt. It was in 1961. It sold for $17.98, which was quite a bit of dough back then. So, here we go. Safety heater. Right here, number 1 is flameless. Number 2, non-toxic. Number 3, odorless. Number 4, economical and multi-purpose. So anyway, it's kind of nice to have all this whole stuff. So I got one more heater I'll show you. It's a non-catalytic, but it's a rather interesting and unusual piece. So be right back. Well, the last heater we're going to talk about here is a Coleman. This is from the late 20s. This is what's called a handy gas plant. And so it has an area here that has slots cut in it so the flame burns white gas again. And then this is the top that goes on it. And that disperses the heat. Well, the idea behind this one was for heating, like if you're out in the barn milking a cow or feeding the critters or stuff like that. So it says farm, dairy, and creameries use, and also chicken coops, stuff like that. Has a burner on the top, just like a Coleman stove. And there's your big amount of fuel controlled by this. And the tank here, you pressurize the tank, so the cap, you take this off and fill it with fuel. And this one you back off and use a hand pump to pressurize it. And then there's also a pressure gauge right here. Okay, well, I've actually serviced this and it's actually usable like it is, but being it's a rather unusual piece, and it's actually for my son, we're going to do a restoration on it. So I'm going to take it completely apart and all the stuff that's rust on it. We're going to use evapor rust on it. And then we found somebody that's made a new label for it. You see the remnants of the original one here. And there's a paper label. And this is, of course, a reproduction. But anyway, that'll spiff it up. So we'll get everything cleaned up and painted and make it look real spiffy with a new decal there, label. So anyway, one little last brief here we're going to talk about. It's not related to heaters here. It's just some projects that we finished up and some general BS. Well, Mrs. O tells me the battery's just about done on the camera, so we'll just do this to finish the video. But I did a video on this axe here recently. Brown Camp hardware stores. And you can see now I've completely polished this thing. You can really see that logo in there, and of course we did the handle, so go back and watch our older video. Anyway, this will be a show axe just because of the logo and stuff. I got plenty of collector axes I use for chopping all the time. That's what they're designed for, but this one's pretty unique, so it's going to be going to the shows for display. So antique and vintage is best, and we'll see you in 2 weeks. Well, it's getting warm in here, so we're going to put this out. Put the snuffer on. Go out here in about 3 to 4 minutes.